James Mitchell had deliberately chosen the date of his engagement party to coincide with the day I left for my studies abroad. He explained to his fiancée that I had a spoiled disposition, and after my departure, he ensured I wouldn't return, claiming it might upset him. Learning of this, my friends kept the news from me, afraid that I would rush back and disrupt the union of James and his true love. What they didn't realize, however, was that I had no intention of coming back. Before leaving, I had already accepted someone else's proposal and was set to become another man's bride within a month. Before my wedding, I returned all the gifts James had given me over the past 15 years, severing all ties with him. "James, we'll each go our separate ways from tomorrow," I told him. The last time I confessed my feelings to him, not only had he rejected me, but he had also left me humiliated. My friends who were present sat in silence, not one of them defending me. The stillness of that moment felt endless, though I couldn't say how much time had passed before Sophia Wilson stood up. Her voice was gentle as she said, "James, Emily is still young. Don't hold it against her. She's already a college graduate. How can she still be immature?" James's tone was sharp and unforgiving. "The first time you confessed, I rejected you. Have you grown up since then? Or are you still incapable of understanding simple words?" I had never seen him so fierce, and tears sprang to my eyes instantly. James's face showed no trace of pain as he watched me cry. Instead, he looked completely exasperated. "At 22, do you still think you can achieve your goals by crying? Aside from weeping and throwing tantrums, is there anything else you can do?" he asked coldly. I stood my ground, refusing to let his harsh words go unanswered. "Then what about all the kindness you've shown me over the years? What does it mean?" At the time of my first love, James had told me I should look for a boyfriend like him. When I turned 16, he rented out an entire amusement park so I could have fun. On my 18th birthday, he filled the sky with fireworks for me and kissed my forehead tenderly. At 20, he used drones to spell my name in the night sky. He had done so many magical things for me, yet he always rejected my confessions, claiming I was too young. He was only 5 years older than me, but this age difference gave me the courage to keep hoping. I believed that once I matured and graduated, things would fall into place. I clung to these fantasies, only to be met with his look of disgust. Now he constantly criticized my love for luxury and scolded me for crying or making a scene when things didn't go my way. Was I really as shameful as he claimed? Was everything I did embarrassing in his eyes? Refusing to accept this, I pressed him further. "If you've never liked me, why didn't you reject me outright all those times I confessed? Why did you leave me clinging to false hopes?" James raised an eyebrow, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Emily Turner, when have I ever given you false hope? I've never promised you anything. I've never agreed to anything. It's you who has been clingy and completely lacking in dignity." He continued coldly, "I've never liked you. The only person I've ever loved is Sophia. I'm going to get engaged to her, and then we'll marry. Stop being so self-absorbed and delusional. Do you understand? If you keep bothering me, I won't be as polite as I am now." With that, he pulled Sophia into his arms. She gently tugged at his sleeve and whined softly, "James." The anger on his face disappeared immediately as he turned to look at her. She kissed his cheek, whispering something, and he responded with a passionate kiss as if the world around them didn't exist. Meanwhile, I left in complete humiliation. From that point on, James began deliberately avoiding me. He stopped visiting the Mitchell family home and moved in with Sophia at another of their properties. All he left was a message announcing his engagement to Sophia. This time, I didn't go to his workplace or his home to confront him. He had been clear enough. There was no need for me to seek further humiliation. Instead, I threw myself into preparing for my graduation defense. By the end of the month, my defense was a success. To celebrate, my classmates and I decided to treat our mentor to a meal. I hadn't anticipated how scarce restaurant reservations in the capital could be, and by chance, I ran into Sophia at the restaurant we chose. She greeted me with a smile. "Emily," she said sweetly. I nodded slightly, intending to leave, but she spoke again in a pitiful tone. "Emily, I know you don't like me. I've always tried to accommodate you, but why can't you just leave me alone and stop pushing me?" Her sudden change in demeanor left me stunned. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Sophia reached out as if to grab me, and I instinctively raised my hand to push her away. Before I could even touch her, she collapsed to the ground. Immediately, James's voice boomed angrily from behind me. "Emily, what are you doing?" He shoved me aside and rushed to help Sophia, who was sprawled on the floor with a pained expression. The force of his push caused me to fall backward, my right hand bracing against the ground instinctively. A sharp pain shot through my wrist, and my face turned pale from the intensity. As an aspiring pianist, injuring my hands was my worst nightmare. Gasping, I turned to James for help. "James, my hand hurts." But he dismissed me without even glancing in my direction. His expression was one of irritation. "You didn't fall that hard. Stop pretending. I told you not to bully Sophia. Apologize now." The searing pain blurred the lines between my physical and emotional suffering. I opened my mouth to explain, but couldn't find the words. "I didn't push her," I protested, but James's expression flickered with anger and disdain. "You didn't push her? Then what? Did she just fall on her own? Do you think everyone is like you, pulling cheap tricks to frame others every day?" His words cut deep, and though the face in front of me was familiar, it felt like I was looking at a stranger. 15 years of friendship, and he couldn't muster even a shred of trust. A wave of sorrow washed over me, leaving me speechless. I no longer had the energy to explain myself or the desire to justify anything. Pain? I'd endure it alone. Injustice? I'd carry it silently. Defending myself to him seemed futile. James only saw Sophia and nothing else. I just wanted the ordeal to end so I could go to the hospital. For the first time, I found myself being submissive, even apologizing. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice low and drained. But my words weren't enough for James. His face hardened. "Where's the sincerity in your apology?" Swallowing my pride, I stood up and bowed deeply toward them. "I'm sorry." At that moment, Sophia, feigning concern, reached out to stop James. "James, don't be too hard on her. I'm sure Emily didn't mean it." With Sophia's intervention, James finally relented, but left me with a warning. "If this happens again, I won't let you off so easily. Don't think you'll ever see me again." I rushed to the hospital, barely making it in time. The doctor informed me that if I had delayed any longer, the damage to my hand might have been permanent. Worst case, I could have lost the ability to play the piano forever. In the taxi on the way home, I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Today, James had not only shattered my self-esteem, but also extinguished every bit of love I still harbored for him. When I got home, I opened social media to see Sophia's latest update. In the photo, she nestled comfortably in James's arms, a radiant smile lighting up her face. James, gazing down at her, looked gentle and affectionate. The caption read, "Love always feels like a debt. Even if you haven't hurt him, he'll still blame himself for not protecting you." In the comments, people gushed about how sweet the post was, while others asked why Sophia had fallen. She responded humbly, "Don't blame Emily. I just lost my balance." James added, "Sophia is truly kind and gentle. Emily can't even compare to her." The comment section exploded with praise for Sophia and accusations against me. Some people even sent me screenshots, ensuring I wouldn't miss it. I knew they only wanted to see me humiliated. Over the years, my pursuit of James had caused plenty of embarrassing moments, but this time I refused to be the butt of their jokes any longer. Logging out of WeChat, I made a call. On the other end of the line was William Parker, a man who had confessed his feelings for me years ago. At the time, I had been too fixated on James to accept him. 2 years had passed, but William had never given up. Deep down, I knew William was an ideal match. He came from a prominent family, was handsome, had a kind heart, and most importantly, loved me deeply. If not for James, I might have fallen for him long ago. Even so, guilt crept in as I prepared to ask him for something after once rejecting him. When William answered, his warm voice came through the line. "Hello?" For some reason, I felt nervous. My fingers unconsciously pinched the hem of my skirt as I tried to steady my breath. Finally, I spoke. "William, will you marry me?" Silence stretched across the line. I could hear my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. After what felt like forever, he responded. "Are you serious?" "Yes," I whispered. A deep laugh echoed on the other end. "Miss, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. But I can't say yes right now. When it comes to proposing, I'll take the lead. His words sent a rush of conflicting emotions through me, one part disappointment, another part relief, like a fresh breeze brushing past my face. Tears welled up in my eyes. All right, I'll be waiting. After ending the call, I hugged my knees and cried silently. My tears weren't for regret about choosing William, but for the realization that letting go of James wasn't as easy as I thought. 15 years of knowing him, 6 years of unspoken love. It turned out that truly letting go only required a single phone call. William, ever thoughtful, wanted to put his work on hold and return immediately to give me a grand proposal. But I declined. I didn't want to stay in this country any longer or create memories here. On the day of my departure, William returned anyway. I had secretly changed my flight time, telling no one, not even James. Still, William found me at the airport. "How did you know I'd be here?" I asked, surprised. He didn't answer directly, instead slipping a simple ring onto my finger. Smiling, he said, "If I don't keep you close, I'll always feel uneasy. Time is tight, so let's use this for now. We'll get a better one when we're married." The long flight ahead suddenly felt less daunting. I hugged him tightly. "You're such a fool," I whispered. He was already busy running a company, and now he'd be traveling between Beijing and the UK just for me. I couldn't fathom what I'd done to deserve his devotion. When we landed, it was 1 p.m. local time. Turning on my phone, I was greeted by a flood of missed calls and over 99 unread messages on WeChat. Most were from James, his father, and his mother. It was clear they had discovered my departure. As William and I got into the waiting car, I stared at the notifications but felt no urge to respond. James's mother called me. "Emily, why did you leave early?" she asked, her tone filled with concern. "Aren't you attending James's engagement party?" "Auntie, it's not appropriate for me to be at James's engagement party," I responded calmly. "I've already arrived safely in the UK, so please don't worry." I deliberately avoided addressing her earlier question. Realizing the oddity of her two questions, James's mother quickly shifted her focus, reminding me to take care of myself and to contact her anytime I needed help. I assured her I would, then ended the call. Just as I was about to turn off my phone, it rang again. This time, it was James. I hesitated for a moment before answering. His voice came through cold and laced with reproach. "Why did you leave early?" he demanded. "You should have been here earlier to settle down." I responded calmly. "Didn't you also deny me the opportunity to attend your engagement party? The Mitchell family is well known in Beijing, and your engagement has drawn many prominent guests. The banquet starts at 7 p.m., yet the ticket you arranged for me was scheduled for 6 o'clock. You clearly never intended for me to attend, so why even ask?" It was almost laughable to me. James was getting exactly what he wanted, my promise never to disrupt his life with Sophia. Yet here he was, asking me pointless questions. Before I could finish my thoughts, he abruptly ended the call as if trying to suppress some emotion. I couldn't decipher his reaction, but my words had clearly unsettled him. For years, I had believed he was my destined one. Under the mistaken impression that he reciprocated my feelings, I had once gifted him the Turner family's love lock, a symbol of eternal love, uniting two hearts forever. James, aware of the deep meaning behind it, accepted it with a vow to treasure it always. It was that promise that kept me chasing after him for so long. Now, sitting beside William, I knew I was on the verge of starting my own family. The love lock, meant for James, no longer had a place in my life. Meanwhile, after hanging up, James found himself gripped by a wave of unexplained frustration. Ever since the incident at the restaurant, I had become more reserved and strategic. No longer reckless, I had even mastered the art of disappearing, leaving at 3 a.m. as if to avoid creating any unnecessary drama. It unsettled him to think that I could just as easily be in England as hiding somewhere in the city. Distrusting my intentions, James contacted the banquet venue's security to strengthen patrols, convinced I would appear before 6 o'clock. This anticipation stirred an odd mix of anxiety and expectation in his heart. Then, his phone buzzed with a message from me. Smiling smugly, he thought, "She's been chasing me for years. How could she give up so easily? But as he read the message, his expression stiffened. The message read, "Brother James, please return the love lock to me. I can provide an address, or someone can retrieve it." His simmering irritation boiled over. Gritting his teeth, he typed back, "One should finish what they started, Emily. Whoever gave it should take it back. Otherwise, let's not discuss it further." Setting his phone aside, James reached for a cigarette to calm his nerves, but was interrupted by Sophia's gentle voice. "James, I'm worried." He turned to see her standing there, her hair styled, her face bare but radiant with concern. She looked especially lovely, her expression so full of unease it made his chest tighten. "What are you worried about?" he asked. "Emily has never liked me," she said softly. "Do you think she'll disrupt our engagement party?" "She won't," James assured her, pulling her into his arms. "Emily's too spoiled, but I've sent her abroad. She won't be coming back, and you won't have to deal with her." Sophia rested her head against his chest, remaining quiet. James looked down at her and felt his decision to send me overseas was the right one. Even in my absence, Sophia's anxiety lingered. Keeping me in the capital would only lead to further complications. In truth, he had hoped sending me abroad would help me mature, allowing me to coexist peacefully with Sophia someday. If that happened, he wouldn't mind bringing me back. After all, we had shared 15 years of friendship. How could he bear the thought of me suffering alone in a foreign country? But tonight, James's expectations were bound to be unmet. While his engagement banquet unfolded, I was having lunch with William. I never made an appearance. As the banquet concluded and guests began leaving, James maintained a polite smile, though a closer look revealed its insincerity. As he passed by the dessert section, he overheard his sister, Jessica Mitchell, chatting with friends. Their laughter and mockery were unrestrained. "I told you Emily wouldn't dare show her face here," Jessica scoffed. "James sent her to England ages ago." "Exactly. She's such a fool, always obedient when it comes to James," another chimed in. "Right? She even takes the blame for me whenever James is involved. It's hilarious," Jessica added, her voice full of amusement. Listening to their words, James's mood darkened. In that moment, he realized how much he had misunderstood me. The vase in the study hadn't been broken by me. I hadn't feigned illness on the day of his competition. I hadn't bullied Jessica. Everything he thought he knew had been wrong. The truth hit him like a sudden wave. Jessica's triumphant smirk was quickly erased when an unexpected slap struck her face. Her brother's glare was sharp with anger as he demanded, "Is this how you behave as a daughter of the Mitchell family? To gain personal benefits, you resorted to framing others and spreading baseless rumors?" Jessica clutched her stinging cheek and yelled back furiously, "You hit me for Emily? Have you forgotten you hated her too? You're the one who sent her abroad." James raised his hand again, but Jessica, undaunted, stared back defiantly. "So what? I am the rightful daughter of the Mitchell family, the true heiress. What does Emily have to deserve anything?" she thought bitterly. "I'm the legitimate daughter, yet for years, a dependent orphan has outshone me. Everyone showers her with concern while ignoring my feelings. Now that I've been sent to England, Jessica no longer conceals her resentment. Standing before James, disheveled and shouting, she seems like a stranger to him. Looking at her now, James feels a wave of unfamiliarity, as though he had never truly seen her, or understood me. A rare look of confusion flickers across his face. When I received James's message, an ache stirred in my chest. The love lock was something I needed to reclaim, yet I had no desire to set foot in the Mitchell family home again. William noticed my troubled expression, gently took my hand and asked with concern, "Is something wrong?" Faced with his caring gaze, a pang of guilt washed over me. How could I tell him that the heart-shaped lock, meant for us, had been given to another man? Shaking my head, I replied softly, "It's nothing. I can handle it." William's expression grew serious. Speaking earnestly, he said, "Emily, you're my fiancée now, and soon you'll be my wife. As your husband, I'll be by your side for life. You can lean on me without hesitation, all right?" His thoughtfulness and warmth brought a flush to my cheeks and touched me deeply, but I knew this was something I had to face alone. Seeing my silence, William sighed and relented. If there's anything you can't handle, you must come to me. Promise?" I nodded, understanding his words in my heart. That evening, I called James's mother. Judging from the timing, the engagement party had just ended. "Auntie, it's Emily," I said. Her tone brightened immediately. "Emily, dear, what's the matter?" I briefly explained my request and admitted, "I may have acted rashly before, and that was my fault. But Auntie, the heart-shaped lock means a lot to me. Could you help me get it back from James?" Having spent so many years with the Mitchell family, James's mother was one of the few people who truly cared for me. She agreed without hesitation. "Don't worry, Emily, I'll get it back for you. That boy James is being ridiculous, holding on to something so important and not returning it. I'll be sure to give him a piece of my mind." Her voice softened. "Emily, I've always seen you as my daughter-in-law. It's James who doesn't deserve you." I quickly interrupted. "Auntie, please don't say that. James never felt that way about me, and besides, I'm about to get married. It wouldn't be appropriate for my fiancé to hear this." Her tone turned surprised. "Emily, you're getting married?" "Yes," I replied, briefly sharing my plans. I also invited James's parents to my wedding. Auntie promised they would attend and assured me she'd bring the love lock. After James returned to the Mitchell family home following his engagement, he began leaving early and returning late each day. His parents rarely saw him. One evening, when he finally came home early, his father immediately called him over. "James, bring me Emily's love lock," his father ordered bluntly. James frowned. "The love lock? Did Emily come looking for you?" His father gave him a pointed look. "You've been holding on to something important of hers. It's no wonder she hasn't reached out to us." Impatient, James snapped, "I told her if she wants it, she has to come get it herself." "Nonsense," his father said sternly. "You're engaged, and Emily has found someone as well. It's better for both of you to keep your distance. You've never had feelings for her, so why are you still holding on to her love lock? What are you trying to prove?" James caught on to something in his father's words. "Wait, what do you mean she's found someone? Is Emily getting married?" "Are you the only one allowed to marry, James?" His father shot back before standing. "Now bring the love lock to my study." As his father went upstairs, James remained where he was, appearing lost in thought. Unaware of the Mitchell family's discussions, I was adjusting to my life in the UK. My master's program wasn't as demanding as I'd expected, and I quickly adapted to my supervisor's pace. No matter how busy he was, William always came to pick me up, treating me with endless love and care. Slowly but surely, my heart was being filled by him. Time seemed to pass in the blink of an eye, and the wedding was fast approaching. I began sorting through the gifts James had given me over the years. What started as childhood hairpins had evolved into elegant dresses and jewelry as I grew older. While going through the items, I realized how childish and naive I had been. As the heir of the Mitchell family, James's gifts were naturally valuable. Yet none of them carried any true significance. Many were chosen thoughtlessly. Some, even items I disliked, like the pink tassel earrings, knowing I had no fondness for the color. Looking back, I saw clearly that James had never truly cared for me. If I had been more observant, I might have realized it sooner. But because of a single promise and his acceptance of the love lock, I had lost myself for so many years. I packed all of his gifts into a box, feeling no attachment to any of them. Then, I contacted a courier service to send the box back. As I watched the truck drive away, carrying the remnants of my past, I felt a sense of closure. Watching the truck drive away with the packed boxes, I felt an unusual sense of relief. In just a few days, my wedding with William would take place. Uncle and Aunt Mitchell would bring my love lock, and James and I would embark on separate lives, never to cross paths again. After tomorrow's farewell, we would each walk toward our own futures. Meanwhile, James was drinking heavily at home. When his father mentioned that I was getting married, a surge of conflicting emotions overwhelmed him. To James, it felt like betrayal. Hadn't I claimed to like him for so many years? How could I so easily turn to someone else? He saw me as deceitful, as someone who didn't care for him at all. Otherwise, why would I go to such lengths for another man to retrieve the love lock? Fueled by alcohol, a sudden urge to confront me burned within him. He wanted to ask why I was marrying someone else. In his haze, James's thoughts wandered to his childhood. He remembered when I first came to the Mitchell family, having lost my parents. Back then, I was a sweet little girl, and he adored spending time with me. Even Jessica had been envious of how close we were. At one point, James had considered making me his girlfriend, but his friends' teasing and jokes about having a child bride caused him to view me differently. Over time, his initial affection shifted to dissatisfaction and eventually to disdain. While James enjoyed having me around, it fed his vanity to see my devotion. He grew annoyed by what he saw as my spoiled and unreasonable behavior. Then, Sophia entered the picture. Unlike me, she was gentle, thoughtful, and poised, the embodiment of his ideal partner. Determined to protect Sophia from potential conflict, James sent me abroad for my studies, feeling confident it was the best decision. Despite these rationalizations, a part of him struggled to silence the lingering thoughts of me. He repeatedly reassured himself that Sophia was the partner he truly desired and that he had no feelings for me. Exhausted, he collapsed onto his bed, still fully dressed, and drifted into a deep sleep. James decided to attend my wedding with his parents. After all, we had grown up together, and attending seemed like the polite thing to do. The day before the event, he received several large packages requiring his signature. Puzzled, he opened them and was stunned to find the contents. Every gift he had ever given me over the years, not a single item was kept. Halfway through unpacking, James realized the significance of this act. A wave of disappointment washed over him, mingled with an unfamiliar sense of emptiness and sadness. At that moment, he felt an overwhelming desire to see me. My wedding with William was a grand affair, as he had insisted. The proposal may not have left a strong impression, and the engagement had been rushed, but William was adamant the wedding must be flawless. I had no choice but to go along with his plans. When James's parents arrived at the ceremony, I had just finished my makeup. Aunt Mitchell handed me the love lock along with a thick red envelope. As I tried to return the envelope, their hands pressed gently over mine. "Take it, dear," Aunt Mitchell said warmly. "It's a small gesture from your uncle and me." Her sincerity, coupled with the glimmer of tears in her eyes, touched me deeply. Thinking of their kindness over the years, I couldn't refuse. I thanked them and had a waiter escort them to their seats at the banquet. James stood nearby, watching silently. His gaze bore into me as if trying to decipher my thoughts. With a cold smirk, he remarked, "So this is what your affection amounts to, Emily." A month later, I saw James again, but to my surprise, I felt nothing, no emotional turmoil, no lingering attachment. Sitting at my vanity, I glanced at him through the mirror. "What is it, James? Do you hope I'll follow you around like I used to?" James didn't answer directly. While he didn't want me to act as I had in the past, a part of him felt reluctant to let go. Casually playing with a lighter in his hand, he said, "Emily, I never realized how easily you give up. You lack persistence in everything, and it's a bit careless." In the past, such words would have left me devastated for days. But now I could smile. I used to be immature and caused you trouble for years. Fortunately, I realized it in time and found someone who truly suits me. In fact, I should thank you. Without what happened that day, I might still be stuck in the past. Your favoritism toward Sophia helped me move on. As I spoke, I turned to face my fiancée, who stood nearby. In James's eyes, I caught a fleeting emotion I couldn't quite place. "Emily," he said, his voice unusually serious, "you should think carefully. After today, there's no going back. This will be the end for us." I found his words perplexing. "The end of what, James? There was never anything between us to begin with." My tone was firm but calm. "And besides, I'm certain I'll never regret this." James seemed unsettled. Thoughts of all the years I had pursued him swirled in his mind. Finally, he asked, "Then why him? Why did you choose him?" Without hesitation, I replied, "His wealth and looks are the least important things to me. I chose him for one simple reason. He respects, supports, and genuinely loves me, and I love him deeply in return. Marrying William feels right, and I am certain now, more than ever, that in the past month I've truly fallen for him. As I looked at James with conviction, his usual sarcastic demeanor seemed to fade. His expression grew complex, and in a low voice he said, "I wish you happiness, Emily." With the love lock finally back in my possession, my wedding felt complete. After exchanging rings, the officiant presented our specially crafted jade plaques. The thin, polished plaques, engraved with both my name and William's, had round holes at the top designed for the love lock to pass through. Holding my plaque in my left hand and the lock in my right, I slid the love lock through the holes in both plaques. With a soft click, the lock was fastened. "This love lock binds us together, symbolizing an unbreakable connection in this life and the next," I whispered to William. "This way, we will never be apart." William appeared calm, but the next moment, he kissed me suddenly and deeply. The closeness between us made my heart race as I rested my hand on his chest, feeling his strong and rapid heartbeat. Despite his composed exterior, I could tell he was as moved as I was. Between our mingled breaths and lips, I faintly heard him murmur, "Emily, I'm so happy." Having pursued me for 2 years, William understood me better than anyone. He knew the significance of the love lock and had likely thought he would never receive it. Until the wedding, I had kept it hidden, making its appearance an unexpected gift. This gesture showed him that my heart was fully his, with no hesitation or ulterior motives. How could he not be overwhelmed with joy? On stage, as we continued to kiss passionately, applause erupted from the audience like a wave. The enthusiasm of the crowd brought us back to reality. The next morning, I woke to find it was already noon. As I descended the stairs, I couldn't help but feel my cheeks heat under the knowing gaze of the maid. William, who had stayed home from work, approached me, ignoring the people around us. Wrapping me in his arms, he asked teasingly, "Are you awake?" I shot him an annoyed look, silently expressing my reproach. "If not for you, how would I have overslept so much?" He chuckled and kissed the corner of my lips, his smile warm and teasing. "Let's have something to eat first, and then I'll take you somewhere special." I assumed he was planning a fun outing, but after our meal, he led me to a room on the 3rd floor. Pushing open the door, I was surprised to find a beautifully decorated piano room. The walls were adorned with photos of me, from one where I was sipping coffee under an umbrella to another taken during high school when I received an award. It turned out William had been paying attention to me long before I even realized. At the center of the room stood a grand piano, its presence both elegant and serene. William extended his hand to me, his eyes filled with warmth as he asked, "Mrs. Parker, would you care to play a duet with me?" Smiling, I placed my hand in his, my heart swelling with anticipation. Without discussing our choice of music, we both instinctively began playing the same piece. "Dream of Love." The soft melody filled the air, drifting out through the open window. Inside the room, as the piano keys danced beneath our fingers, William held me close. The afternoon sunlight bathed the room in a golden glow, and together we created a memory as warm and timeless as the music we played. The moment transformed into a beautiful scene, one of love, harmony, and a future shared. The end.